This worsens the human rights situation in that country and fundamental freedoms. Add to that the recent constitutional reform, which has eliminated the necessary separation of powers, which is a fundamental component of democracy and any republic. This is unprecedented in our region, as we see stripping the nationality of dozens of Nicaraguans. They're left stateless. That is, their existence was deleted from all records. They do not exist in their own country. This, Chair, dear colleagues, is inhumane. We're also deeply concerned with Nicaragua's repeated contempt of resolutions and decisions from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, a body which still has binding jurisdiction in that country in light of the San Jose Pact. Systematic refusal to abide by international obligations fritters away at the rule of law and violates the very heart of the system that we have built hand in hand. For all of that reason, we are asking that we act with collective responsibility as we examine the issue of the situation in Nicaragua in the agenda of the bodies of this organization. With regard to Venezuela, from this organization, we have continued to behave like passive, idle witnesses to the deterioration of civic space and the human rights situation in that country. This needs to change. Let us choose a political process that allows us to restore democratic order in Venezuela with guarantees for all stakeholders that is led by the Venezuelan people. Democracy and human rights will never be taken for granted, and we must not forget situations like that of Cuba or countries where we see growing authoritarianism. Chair, this GA is also a place where in just a few moments we will be making a choice that is enormously important. That is the partial renewal of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and we recognize the very high level of the candidates and the great responsibility that sits shoulders in ensuring an election that will strengthen the legitimacy, independence, and representativity of this very important body. Institutionally, we would like to give a very warm welcome to the Secretary General, Mr. Albert Ramdeem, and we reiterate our interest, commitment, and support for the processes that the Secretary General is driving to strengthen and renew our organization. Also, thank you to the Assistant Secretary General, Nestor Mendez, for his management skills, his commitment, and his work on behalf of the Hemisphere. He has left a deep footprint in the history of the OAS. Congratulations to the incoming ASG, Ms. Laura Gil from Colombia. Her leadership will be a determining factor as we guide our organization through stormy waters, including its financial sustainability. We cannot ignore that the OAS is facing a structural conjuncture that requires bold decisions. This isn't just a matter of rationalizing our resources, but rather rethinking how we can build a more effective organization that is closer to the people, more coherent in its mandates. Renewing our working methods is necessary, starting with ourselves. Here in the GA, where we suggest investing more time in spaces for direct, informal dialogue, and thus reducing the time of formal meetings to a single day with much shorter, concise declarations. And we advocate for a flexible, efficient General Secretariat that serves all states and prioritizes tangible results and channels the scanty resources toward its shared priorities. Chair, please allow me to close by underscoring Costa Rica's staunch commitment to blue diplomacy. Just a few days ago, our country co-organized, along with France, the 3rd UN Conference on the Ocean in Nice. Protecting the ocean is a planetary urgent issue, and the Americas should play a more active role in that collective effort. The OAS plays a fundamental role in ocean governance, as well as in the hemispheric environmental agenda, and you can count on Costa Rica's full support in order to make this a reality. Costa Rica believes in diplomacy, efficient multilateralism, and the strength of the inter-American system to advance toward fairer, more resilient, and united societies. Once again, from this forum, we reiterate our commitment to those ideals. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Costa Rica.
I now yield the floor to the head of delegation for the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Mr. President, Assistant Secretary General, His Excellency Albert Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General, Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Heads of Delegations, Permanent Representatives and Alternates, Permanent Observers, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. Mr. President, our theme for this General Assembly, Building Inclusive and Resilient Economies in the Americas, is refreshing. It has enlightened the realities of the life of nationals of the Commonwealth of Dominica since our near-total devastation by Hurricane Maria in 2017. This theme, therefore, is a call to action for every citizen, family, community, member state of the hemisphere to join in the fight of our lifetime to secure and advance the well-being of our peoples. It is in this spirit, renewed spirit of solidarity and collaboration, that I bring greetings from the government and people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Honorable Dr. Vince Henderson, Minister with Responsibility for Foreign Affairs of Dominica, has asked that I convey his regrets and give his best wishes for a successful assembly. Mr. President, I wish to thank you for your leadership and guidance to this assembly. I also thank the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda for the hospitality, efficiency displayed in hosting this complex event. Please convey our gratitude to Honorable Gaston Brown, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, for his highly motivating statements at the opening ceremony and at the special session titled Uniting the Americas for Mental Health from Commitment to Action. Together, these two statements were sincere and practical. They inspired hope and made a case for the continued relevance of the OAS. Our gratitude is also extended to the OAS team for their contribution in the preparation, coordination of activities for this assembly. Mr. President, Dominica joins other member states in congratulating newly elected Secretary General, His Excellency Albert Ramdin, on his taking up of office as executive head of this organization. Congratulations also to Her Excellency Laura Gill, who will soon be taking up her assignment as Assistant Secretary General and on being the first woman to assume this prestigious office. This is also the final assembly of our distinguished Assistant Secretary General, Ambassador Mendez, and some of his team. We thank them, together with their respective families, for making their invaluable contributions possible. We also bless them with success in their new endeavors. We have listened to the post-election statements of the new Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General, and the passionate way they have shared with the hemisphere their visions for making OAS so much more relevant to today's reality. This period is therefore one of transition and transformation. My delegation looks forward to working with the new team and to the unveiling of new and innovative programs in the months ahead. Mr. President, new leadership, however, comes with new challenges, with the hemisphere now having to face the negative impact brought on by accumulation of political, economic, security, and development-related uncertainties. All the pillars of the organization therefore need the transformation and realignment referred to earlier. Mr. President, with regards to the pillars of democracy and human rights, we must applaud the work done to date across the hemisphere, particularly with the election observer missions and the completed cases and interventions by human rights institutions. We encourage even greater dialogue and collaboration with member states. With specific reference to the work of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, Dominica looks forward to improved and timely communication to ensure that future statements published provide the best advice and outcome to all stakeholders. Mr. President, in addition to dealing with the challenges posed by traditional security threats, member states are now facing growing security concerns, emanating from areas like energy deficiencies, the growing cost and implication of timely disaster response, poverty, and inequality. We need even more rigorous strategic and programs and projects and reasonable methods of financing to adequately mitigate these contemporary security threats and the challenges. The situation in Haiti has been effectively articulated. I wish here to note and support the vision of the new Secretary General to further intensify the role of OAS in Haiti. Dominica pledges its support for this Haitian-led and all-inclusive roadmap and action plan for the systematic liberation of the people of Haiti. The region and the hemisphere need a strong and democratic Haiti. Mr. President, the development agenda remains a fundamental pillar in an area of programming that is crucial for all member states, particularly the less developed. It's an area where OAS action should be intensified and given its equal share of attention and resources. The Inter-American Council of Integral Development, CIDI, and its Secretariat have done tremendous work and is set on a path to continue outstanding work. Dominica continues to benefit from CIDI's discussions and programs that advance development in tourism, culture, small business, ports, education, connectivity, and the development of rural and indigenous communities. My delegation expresses our special gratitude to the leadership of CIDI for that period and to the Executive Secretary and her team for their outstanding work. Mr. President, my delegation would like to end by reaffirming our support to the new Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, and their teams in their efforts towards the realignment of the OAS to make it even more relevant and central to the promotion of democracy, human rights, security, and development of the hemisphere through more inclusive and resilient programming across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominica. May I now pass the floor to the head of delegation of Ecuador.
Chair, Foreign Ministers, Vice Foreign Ministers, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, permanent representatives, Ecuador reiterates its commitment to this Organization of American States, which has been part of a tradition of promoting democracy, human rights, solidarity, and development. And we send warm greetings from President Noboa, and the Ecuadorian people recently renewed their confidence in him at the polls for the next 4 years. And this is a new milestone in our trajectory as we are holding our GA here in the Caribbean. And thank you very much to the Antigua and Barbuda government for receiving us. It has been 30 years since we last held the GA in a CARICOM state. And we also have a Secretary General from the same region, Albert Ramdin, who we salute. And he has shown great value to this organization.
I believe that the plight of our countries unifies us with our brothers and sisters of the CARICOM nations in our common endeavor to promote our interests and aspirations. This dynamic also invites us to reflect on the nature of the relationship among the members of this organization. Indeed, we share and embrace your concerns and hopes, which are ours. We are called upon to strengthen the OAS as the primary political forum where we can speak, hear, and understand each other beyond any circumstantial difference. Pese a las críticas que se le han indilgado,
the OAS is called on to take on a responsibility in defending its charter in order to better the future of our nations, eradicating poverty that can no longer be tolerated, uprooting violence throughout the world and pursuing sustainable development in peace and democracy without letting the fight against corruption fade, and in summary, to rebuild with social cohesion and justice. And given our theme, Chair, among the different states and between the public and private sectors, we will move forward, bringing in investment that will allow us to truly make use of Ecuador's full potential. Our leader said that we need to modernize strategic sectors and innovate, as well as allow public entities to put an end to corruption and make sure that we focus on development for Ecuadorians. We cannot spare any effort when it comes to building inclusive economies and bolster the most vulnerable sectors. Ecuador has mechanisms that will strengthen the state's capacity for response and bring about better digitalization, energy transition, and better access to education. As we've mentioned already, next year we will hold a ministerial meeting in Ecuador on education. Chair, we believe that the OAS must play a transformative role and member states must bring about results. I remember your words, Secretary General, when you took on the role. And you said that we have to inspire resilience and potential throughout our hemisphere. The Inter-American Democratic Charter is our highest level document. And through its mechanisms to activate measures to act for mobilizing rule of law, we'll be able to tackle the new threats to democracy. We must persist in our crusade against inequality and discrimination of all kinds, especially that against women, not just with words, but with opportunities. And we must always fight to defend human rights. This is what we focus on, but this must become a daily practice of ours. And we have to work constructively, day after day, for the benefit and interests of all our peoples and their human rights. No one can be above those rights, namely the dictatorships that remain in our region, void of all democratic legitimacy. Ecuador is the country that has held the most electoral observation initiatives. The MOE welcomed the convening of a process that was fraught with challenges. The government of Ecuador believes that guaranteeing peace and security is indispensable in order to achieve sustainable development and economic growth, as well as build resilient and inclusive economies. Ecuador is on the front line against transnational organized crime, and with the support of its people, we wage an existential fight against narco-terrorism, which violates people's rights and corrodes the social fabric of our nation. The violence that we face is not unknown to other nations here. It is a cross-cutting issue, and the impact of these problems on our citizens means that we need greater, more intense, more effective international mobilization so that we can work in tandem and tackle these scourges. I welcome the work of the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security with, for the first time, support from the Inter-American Defense Board to build a program or a process for Ecuador so that we can improve our state capacity to respond to transnational organized crime with a comprehensive, coordinated focus. As I was saying yesterday, in Peru last year, we launched a resolutive program based on solidarity measures to bring about concrete results. There's a long way to go, but we have made progress, and been able to tackle corruption, and we've created work opportunities for our youth and attracted investors precisely to ensure greater security. And as a final word, just to express our solidarity to our brother nation of Haiti, we are ready to give every bit of assistance possible to meet the real needs of Haiti and do everything that's appropriate for that nation's peoples. To conclude, we look forward to a revitalized OAS, an example of multilateralism, one that promotes true solidarity, one that brings about consensus on challenges that overflow our capacities as individual nations. We want greater understanding amongst the peoples of our hemisphere, the leaders that we have to be held accountable to. We need to seek out our people's best interest. And I want to close by congratulating Nestor Mendes in his time. Thank you, Ecuador. We are now going to listen to the final report, and so we will give the floor to the delegation of El Salvador.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair, Secretary General, ASG, ambassadors, heads of delegations. I begin my statement expressing my appreciation to the Foreign Affairs Minister of Antigua and Barbuda for the wonderful treatment that my government has received here in this lovely country. I also want to congratulate the new Secretary General, Albert Ramdin, and the ASG-elect, and I hope that under their leadership we'll be able to work closely and build a new chapter, write a new chapter for this important organization. El Salvador will spare no effort to achieve that. El Salvador is here today, hoping that we will allow for the OAS to be reborn. We believe that true change will always have opposition, but we cannot expect different results if we continue to do the same thing. El Salvador is a clear example of a country that has fought endlessly to achieve major change. Although some people speak of change, and that's all it is talk, we have shown in El Salvador that true change is possible when you have firm leadership. We're not here to repeat empty speeches or treat problems as if they were just part of the landscape. We are here to challenge the status quo and show that true change is attainable when you work with real commitment. To all the naysayers, you can't just talk about security, education, the economy. You need to act decisively. In El Salvador, in only 6 years, we've gone from being one of the most dangerous countries in the world to being an example of resilience and hope. How? With brave decisions, with renovated leadership that is not afraid of adversity, and with a clear vision that change is not just an option, it is the obligation. It is part of our human nature. We cannot allow for critiques and judgment to stop us, because those voices do nothing other than impede our development. We have learned that true change comes from the bravery of challenging and breaking with the chains of the past. Social exclusion, poverty, etc. are challenges that we need to address with policy and show that a different future is possible, and that only actors interested in our development will join us in this fight. We've also shown that when a country decides to take the reins of a situation, we can make a change. An increase in tourism, a decrease in violence, show that when you make a commitment to change, you can overcome all adversity. We had major obstacles to building the dreams of Salvadorians. Today, our people feel hope and are ready to build a new future with their families in this great nation. To the leaders and organizations present here today, we say, the time has come to leave complacency behind. The OAS and other multilateral institutions must stop being mere observers and should take decisive action. The organization needs re-engineering so that we can achieve concrete results and leave behind special interests. The history books of the future will judge us based on the decisions we make today. El Salvador is committed to this part of the organization's story. The Secretary General can count on our support for all initiatives undertaken here. We need coordination. We need to strengthen the mechanisms that bring the different bodies of the OAS together. And we need a results-focused strategy going forward. Chair, building resilient and inclusive economies in the hemisphere is our theme. It's a strategic focus. We are living a decisive moment where building resilient and inclusive economies should challenge the structures that have impeded our progress. The Americas can be an example for the rest of the world to follow, but that's only going to come about if we break away from old practices and bet on innovative initiatives. We need concrete action. Many people ask us how to build a resilient and inclusive economy in our country. El Salvador is a singular example of this. For decades, El Salvador was seen as one of the most dangerous countries in the world because of the crime levels, the gang activity, and the absence of authority. Strategically, one of President Bukele's main initiatives in 2019 was looking at insecurity and social exclusion in a comprehensive fashion. Results came about quickly. We finished 2024 with 114 homicides alone. For a country where for such a long time it was seen as a terrible place for all of those unfortunate circumstances, we finished with 1.9 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. That is a historic figure. When you bet on improving, you can make a change. Economic miracles require changes in terms of what we see in the criminal sectors of our countries. We need to improve security, we need to tackle violence, and we need to contribute to rebuilding our social fabrics. And in order to have a resilient economy, you need policies that will reach all groups. You need to think of the youngest, the eldest. You need to transform your country in a participatory way. A dramatic decrease in violence in our country has made our nation attractive to investors and to tourists who want to bear witness to the process. Companies have trusted El Salvador again and want to be a part of our change, the change that our country is undertaking now. We have greater hope. And now we have more opportunities for development. Until January of 2025, thousands of companies like restaurants, hotels, transportation companies as well have opened up their doors in El Salvador.